Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our Thursday Night Live. I'm Crypto Kate, your Chief Player Ambassador, and with me tonight I have
John Mako McGill,
one of our player ambassadors for the National Cyber League. And tonight's show is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little short because we're not going to really do a demo. The skill we're talking about is a little more advanced. It's not something that we can easily teach and display and show online.
Basically, why we use scripting tools, right? Yeah, like Kate mentioned, the scripting is a little bit more of an advanced topic, and it really kind of depends on like what your environment is. Some people like to use Windows exclusively, and for that you need to write like batch files or something like that. You can also use PowerShell, but PowerShell typically is for interactions with the Windows interface and with the Windows subsystems. So really that kind of goes a little bit beyond the scope of what we're doing here, but a great skill to learn if you're going to be in the industry someday doing any kind of system hardening or anything like that. You're definitely going to want to pick up some PowerShell, just to make your job a lot easier. And that's really, I once heard that what scripting is automating the boring stuff, right? So, if you've done the same task over and over again, then you can always automate it and make it a lot easier. So one of our favorite questions has already come up, which is, will this coaching session be recorded for later viewing? I may not be able to view online or be here for the whole session. So I'll let you field that one, Kate.
So the shows for our Crowdcast channel are always recorded, and they actually remain on our Crowdcast channel. This is one of 14 sessions that we planned out for this season. So if you go on the top left, you should see schedule, quick schedule, click on the session that you want to view. They all have titles, they all have numbers, whatever floats your boat, however you want to get to them. You click on the session you want, and you can hit play. They're all recorded, and they stay here forever and ever. If you also go to crowdcast.io/NCL, that's our channel, you can see all of the Crowdcast videos that we've ever done ever. But this is a pretty new platform, so it's mostly just these and a couple of short announcements.
Right, and just a quick little, handoff with that. We are also recording these sessions and sending them to be transcribed. So once we get the, our transcription services and everything, then they are reposted on the actual NCL website and through. Is that through YouTube now also?
I didn't know we were doing that. So
yeah, they did it last week. Yeah, they did it last week. I saw it, and yes. So definitely, we want to be able to make these available to all of our players. So, okay. So a little bit about scripting. We'll take Windows scripting first. So you may have had a little bit of experience with this in the form of any kind of command line that you've ever written anytime. So if you've gone to a command line tool before, you can script it. If you've typed in anything at the command line ever, you just put it in a file, you open up WordPad, type all your commands, and then you just save it as a .bat file, and you should be able to just double click it and it'll take off and do all those commands. Now, there is one caveat to that, which is if you are logged on as an administrator, they will run with administrator privileges. If you're logged on as a user, they will only use user privileges. However, if you
should be using a sandbox, a virtual machine, so that if you accidentally run something you shouldn't, as an administrator, you don't break your host machine. This is a lesson that we cannot reiterate enough.
I need to jump off real quick. Hold on.
Okay. While John is still here, leaving.
Here, off-ish.
I don't know. Cool. I think I'm solo. More of my living room is on display than I planned. But hey, while John is gone, I'm going to go ahead and answer the question that I see from Oscar. Says that this is my first time. What type of skills do I need to be successful? For me, I say that the number one thing you need to be successful is determination. I'm not even kidding. I know that sounds super cheesy and markety, but if you're really determined to succeed, there are plenty of resources out there. We publish most of them for you to be successful in these games. So as long as you are a determined individual, you will do well in the games. John, do you have anything to add to what type of skills does a first timer need to be successful?
The ability to Google.
True.
I mean, I find so many of my answers, through just going through any kind of Reddit forums, or going through several coding forums. I find them sometimes in GitHub, Pastebin. If you can Google really well, you can find a lot of information you need usually to answer the challenges. So I know that's a fundamental skill, is to be able to Google things. And it sounds easy until you realize that there's a lot of different ways that you can format your queries to kind of increase your success, right? And those are called Google dorks. If you just look up
advanced Google operators, that's the other search term you can use to get those.
There you go. So if you can actually search for Google dorks or Google search operators or advanced operators and see a whole list of things that you can use, such as in URL or on domain, in domain or something like that, in site. Yeah. And you can just search for individual, kind of narrow that search down, because there is a lot of information obviously out there, and you want to be able to get to just what you need and get to it quickly. That actually was one of the things.
Sorry. Shauna said Googling is definitely a top skill in like every field, and I agree. And Eric mentioned another skill, and that's if you get frustrated, go to something else and then come back. And I think sort of resetting and that ability to walk away and come back is definitely a useful skill as well. So I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, time management, definitely a top skill. I think that it helps to be able to control your environment quite a bit, minimize distractions, find a playlist that works for you. I've got one that I used from DEF CON a couple years ago that, just kind of helps me focus a little bit. Taking those breaks, just stretching the legs and, get the blood flowing again, your brain needs blood and oxygen. And if you're not moving around, then you're kind of starving it. So you do need to get up every now and then, if nothing else, just to get another Monster energy drink, right? You got to do something.
Privacy Pupper says that you should take breaks to love your pets. Zena, that's a lot of love. So don't neglect your pets. Give them some extra love and take them on some long walks, and it'll help you sort of reset and refresh and come back ready to take another crack at it.
So one of the things I use scripting for is to automate the boring stuff, right? To also use it for things that I get tired of looking up the same thing over and over again. Sometimes my memory is not 100% on all the different command line flags. We'll take the Google Dorks, for example. You can actually write your own script that would allow you to search by topic, or search, in a domain, or search without using, for example, if you're looking for NCL, you might want to automatically screen out Norwegian Cruise Line, right? Because that is obviously going to be a top, listed result. So I'm looking at Hug Your Mouse and Go to the Shelter, and some of the.
Yeah.
I think Zena's hijacked our session here.
Well, if you don't have a dog, you can love Privacy Pupper from afar. She has her own Twitter. I wish I was kidding, but I'm not.
So you can just write a script basically that you can use it to remember all those command line flags. Just by setting up a simple menu system where you can just type in search in domain, and it'll automatically screen out all that stuff you don't want, and just search that one domain. So you're going to see that a lot in open source intelligence, obviously, which is one of the foundational examples that they use in the NCL. Everyone usually focuses on the OSI first, because it's a quick test just to make sure you know how to look for information, right?
Also, this is sort of our last coaching content before we go on to sort of how to participate in the games and how to be a good player and things like that. So if you go back to previous sessions of this series, we go through all of the entry-level skills that we think a person needs to get started in the NCL games. So if you look at your URL right now, it's probably something along the lines of crowdcast.io/some/8. That's because this is our 8th coaching session on this platform. If you just change that number to 1, 2, 3, 4 through 7, you're going to see all of our previous videos giving you all of the skills you need to get started.
some other things we can use scripting for might be if you are chaining a lot of things together. So for example, say you're using one tool to create a password list, and then you're using another tool to run that password list against a cracking tool or something like that. You can actually write all that into a single script so that you just feed it a couple command line parameters and it'll generate all those lists for you and automatically pipe them into your favorite cracking tool and start the whole process. It's just a much faster, from point A to point B, kind of path to be able to script all this stuff ahead of time.
A good way to think about scripting is, once you know how to do things, you want to make it easier. So you don't have to do what I do and rewrite your commands every single season and try to read your handwritten notes because I still don't type them.
There's rumors that some people have made a master tool to go through and search, strings out of files for NCL flags or, that kind of thing. That would be a smart thing to do.
Is there really?
Yeah, I mean, you're just using.
Supposed to be published.
No, I'm saying you could write your own. I'm not saying you can publish it, but definitely you could write your own, to go through and check strings in a file or, kind of customize that for your NCL purposes. If you're doing the command more than a dozen times, it makes sense. You could write one, for example, for just going through your basic steps of cryptography, right? Just run it through a ROT13, run it through a base64, and see if something pops out.
Or you could learn how to recognize them.
Well, that's why this is an advanced topic, right? This is one of those things that you're relying on the fact that you've done this before. So definitely if this is your first time, scripting may not be the best use of your time because you're going to end up spending more time troubleshooting your scripts than getting flags.
I definitely still don't even use scripts. Frankly, for me, going through the game, the only time I use scripts is when I'm running the same thing over and over again. So for example, in the games, there's usually a challenge where you'll have to find a hash collision. And basically, I wrote a script that tried out A, and then B, and then C, and then D, and then went to AA, and then BB, one at a time. So that's the only thing where I had to do something thousands of times before I was willing to write a script. If it's something that I have to do dozens, I'm probably still going to do it by hand because I think it reinforces the skill that I'm trying to learn.
Right. Or you may had the example before that if you wanted to make a password file that had NCL-flag-0000 all the way through 9999, that you would just do that in Excel. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But if you know your command line stuff, you could also, write a script ahead of time that all you're doing is putting in the parameters, the first three letters or the, what numerical range you want it to run against. And you can generate all those password lists, with your own tool that way. And it just kind of simplifies the whole process.
And generate a password list with tools that already exist. It's literally one command, John. Why are you writing scripts for that?
Because I might want to do it more than once. And I don't always remember the command line script, so it's easier to, dump that in a file and just double click it. It's a lot easier.
Write this down, take a little note, then you don't have to forget things. That's why I have a notebook.
Yeah, you can just write a little script. It's fine. Just a little script, just a little one.
So John and I come from very different worlds, as you can tell, and I think it's really great that we have multiple perspectives. So I'm very anti-script because I think it makes you a little bit lazy and it doesn't force you to learn the skill as thoroughly as doing things manually. The only time, like I said, if I have to do something more than 1,000 times to get the right answer, then I'll use a script. I know scripting is considered better technically, but I think at the level that NCL exists in the space that it exists in, learning to do things by hand and correctly, and reinforcing that skill season after season is important.
Right.
I said I used the scripts for the hash collisions.
So instead of we use scripts for different things. Obviously, I use them to simplify my life, and you use them anytime you need a brute force tool, right? And again, there's no right or wrong to this, but certainly if you're doing a reverse engineering where you have to run tons of flags against it to see what unlocks the file, then yeah, scripting is the way to go. You're just going to spend forever doing it by hand. So, but the problem is that really, if you're not good at scripting, then you end up spending more time debugging the script than actually, solving the answer. So, again, for first-time users, scripting is probably not going to be required unless you're working on one of the harder challenges. And then make sure you get all the low-hanging fruit first before you start going down that rabbit hole, because you're going to eat up a lot of time.
Yeah. I will say that Michael in the chat makes a really good point with the rise of containerization. Scripting is a must as we move forward. Maybe not ideal for NCL, but a real world, it is a must. And I have to say that, yeah, it definitely is a must in the real world, as much as I don't like to do it. I definitely have done it at work. I do use it, when I'm doing the same thing multiple times across multiple systems. But I'm also really lazy, and I like to reinforce the skills that I've learned by doing it manually. I know a lot of shortcuts at this point. I know, when you're typing something out, if you have a long file name, you can just type, the unique characters at the beginning and hit tab, and it's going to fill in. So, for me, it's great. It's an important skill. I don't need it most of the time to do well in the games.
No, and that's a fact. I mean, obviously you don't need it, right? If you are really good with your time management skills and you're really good at some of those things you're going to have to do repetitiously, and if you don't get frustrated doing repetitious tasks, you're going to be fine. I get frustrated doing repetitious tasks. So I just
David said that you probably come from back when you had to write code for the entire network. After 172 hours of writing code, anything that could be scripted was scripted. And what I'm hearing is that David is calling you old.
Well, I spent my time in the trenches. I started out as a programmer a long time ago, and actually, to give you an idea, I learned my first scripting language was Perl. So yeah, we've come a long ways since that. Now my favorite.
I think you're that old.
No, I love Python now. Python's my thing. But Perl scripts. That's where I learned regular expressions. And when I'm using like tools like Glog, for example, to rip through tons of log files, then using irregular expressions is a kind of key skill to have, right?
I will say David did not say anything like so mean. I definitely added that subtext because, I wouldn't pick on John if I didn't adore him.
Perl 6, yeah. So, I learned Perl was my first scripting language. Command line, writing bat files, that kind of stuff. But in a modern sense, Python is going to have all the tools you need, including all the little math libraries and everything to solve cryptography challenges, or be able to use really simple logic structures like if-then statements, or switch case lines. I do come from a programming background, so that definitely makes sense that I'm a little bit more pro tools than Kate, which it sounds like you're really anti-tools, which it's weird that you're on that
podcast.
I hate
programming. Yeah, so I'm definitely the worst of the other player ambassadors, to be honest. So I came into this field because my fiance is a programmer, and I thought I wanted to go into like end user development and make things pretty and user friendly, because I was like, man, every website sucks. They could definitely be better. They're hard to use. Let's dummy proof this ish. And then they put me in C++, which is not a freaking pretty language at entry level. You have to do everything manually, and I hated it. And now I don't like to code because they put me in the worst language possible. And I never even finished my degree in programming. I just switched to cybersecurity, and I was like, I'm never coding again.
I learned Visual C++. That was my first real programming language. So, I have a C++ background. I feel your pain on that one. Languages have gotten so much easier to use. Like Python is just ridiculously easy. I mean, you can learn Python in a weekend. Hopefully not the weekend that you're trying to do the NCL. Probably not worth your best time to try to learn Python while you're trying to do the games. Just go to Professor Messer and learn your scripts before you do all the games, definitely.
I have nothing against other programming languages. I just don't think they're for me. Like, that's not my stick. That's what my fiance is the maker. I'm the breaker. It's a good system.
Indirectly, I just answered one of our questions, which is coding. I've never heard or done any of that. Any site you would recommend to learn that from Oscar? There are a lot of programming, learn to programming sites. I think probably one of them would be Code Gurus, I want to say. There's a ton of resources. Code Academy, that's a great one. I can't remember if Professor Messer does programming classes or if he just does.
I know I think he does the CompTIAs.
I know he does the CompTIA stuff. I just didn't remember if he did any kind of programming.
He just does CompTIAs. If I don't know, I could be wrong. I would have avoided it if he had programming stuff.
There's Python programming classes through Udemy and through Cybrary. I'm a big proponent of Cybrary. One of my favorite sites to go to and get all those free classes. I mean, the price is definitely right. So yeah, I don't really think coding is necessary for the NCL, but it can definitely help. As far as if you're trying to get through a brute force task, or you're just tired of doing the same thing over and over again. There are some challenges, for example, where you have to rearrange the bits in a file, or if you have to, recompile, or recursively unzip something. You can do that manually. There was one challenge that I was in a CTF once where you had to recursively unzip over 100 times.
That was NCL.
Was that NCL? Okay, yeah.
That was like 2 seasons ago.
Do not try that without scripting. That's just that is going to take
I did it by hand and got the answer, so I don't want to hear it.
You can.
I unzipped that so many times. I would just hit up, enter. Like, that's all I did. I just back and forth, baby.
I don't know.
Oh, we've got a good question here from Rob. Rob asked, a good place to get PowerShell examples that would be useful in the competition. John, that is all you.
PowerShell? Nothing. I just can't think of a reason why I've ever needed PowerShell for the games. It just
because you use Kali, right?
I use Kali, but PowerShell again is for a lot of Windows administration. So if I had to go through the registry, or if I had to, go in and lock down security controls, or implement a group policy, or build an account, hey, PowerShell's your tool. That's great. But using it in the games, I can't think of a single time. Maybe someone in the audience has a good example for that, but I just I've never had to use it, and just don't see a purpose for it yet. Maybe
the title of this
Ron's will be listening to this and they'll be like, "Oh, really?" Right? They do kind of get ideas sometimes from players. As far as like what challenges to put in next time. So maybe if they're listening, they'll be like, "Well, okay, we'll put some PowerShell in there for you guys."
I will say that the title of this video came from me going, "What's the Windows command line?" and somebody going, "I think it's PowerShell," and that's how I titled this video. Before I had a team of people to help me. Because again, this was not a subject that I wanted to
do. So, yeah, break out the task manager. Comments tanked the feed, it looks like. I think anytime Windows broke, it's command prompt and task manager. Yeah, absolutely. Windows administration stuff. If you were in a blue team situation, or like I coach a technical mentor for Cyber Patriot, and there's about 5 teams that I work with, and that's all blue side. That's all setting those scripts up ahead of time to implement password policy, to make sure that the group policy is forced on all computers, all that background stuff for hardening systems. PowerShell is great for that. There was
a question and I kind of broke it, so I don't know what's going to happen now.
I can see
should we use a VM for the game, or is a USB Kali okay in terms of security? I mean, USB Kali is still a virtual machine, right, John? I'm not making that up.
No, actually, USB Kali is a live boot, so it's not a virtual machine at all. It is a non-persistent session. If you choose it. I mean, there's actually a couple different options. You can boot as a persistent session where you actually have like a portion of your hard drive where you store all your data on, or you can use a non-persistent live CD. And if you do that, when you turn off the computer, that whole session is destroyed. There should be no artifacts left on it. So in that sense, it's kind of like a virtual machine, but it's not a machine running inside of a machine. It's actually replaces your entire operating system with a live version of Kali.
Oh, so you can still break your computer. Good to know.
You can break Kali, but then if you reboot, then it just comes back.
So
up.
you'll break the operating system on the flash drive. You won't actually break anything on your host machine that would
That is
be
correct.
any other. So you can break that OS.
I mean, the only way you're going to break hardware is if you actually have some sort of malware that's designed, to affect the programming in your processor, which unfortunately is a thing. It does happen. Very, very rare still. It's some of the brand new, malware that is out there, but you're obviously not going to come into contact in that, with that in the games. But other than that, you might. The only other time you might affect your hardware is if you are running like a password cracker or something and you melt your CPU or melt a graphics card because you just tasked it too hard and don't have proper ventilation for your computer or something. I mean, most of the time when you turn off the computer, turn it back on, everything's going to clear and refresh, and you won't have any kind of problem with that. So yeah,
that's why I have a coffee mug that says, "Did you try turning it on and off again?"
Yeah. Now, obviously, if it's your Windows host system, yes, you can mess that up, and have actually. And there's nothing worse than trying to rebuild an operating system in the middle of the games.
It happened to Gina, and it happened to Gina and my friend Lizzie, both of them, and it's happened to them during the games. It happened to me once, but that was before I actually knew how to operate like a computer at all anyway, and it wasn't because of the NCL games. I just actually broke something because I somehow opened command line on Windows and I somehow murdered my operating system, and I wasn't I don't know. I still don't know how it happened. Frankly, I shouldn't have been touching a computer at that point in my career, but here I am.
Worst thing I did was the night before the games, I thought I'd be smart and do a update and upgrade on my Kali. Yeah, and it took the entire competition. It was still patching. So I had to run a completely different virtual machine with Kali in it because that one was never going to finish. So yeah, I've kind of melted my operating system by doing updates the night before. I do not recommend that. Make sure you're patching in all your updates and your image is frozen before you go into the games.
I see a really good question that I'm going to take from Brandon. Brandon asks, what's a good cryptography book to pick up? Well, The Code Book by Simon Singh. It's on my blog every time I talk about cryptography. This is the person, I learned cryptography mostly from Dance Teacher video games and the books and stuff when I was a kid. But when I learned that cryptography was a known subject and I started to really study it, I learned from Simon Singh's website, The Black Chamber. And then later I was gifted the book, and it is very worn, and it is my favorite book, and I reread it all of the time. I think I've reread it more times than I've read the Harry Potter series, which is saying something. So The Code Book by Simon Singh, hands down best. John, do you have any other resources to add for cryptography?
I like Rumkin, a couple of online sites like decode.fr. ASCII to Hex is a great one. Just some of those, kind of online.
Those are tools. Can you think of any books?
Oh, books. I learned everything I know about cryptography from CryptoKate.
I mean, I do have a blog on it, not to self-promote, but if you go to CryptoKate.com and you go to workshops, there should be CryptoKate's Crypto Camp. And that's everything you need to know for the NCL games. Yeah,
literally, that's how my introduction to cryptography was on your blog. That's how I, ended up originally finding your blog. Was I was looking for crypto stuff.
That's actually when you have a website, you can look at the sources that link to your blog and how people you would not believe how many times that guide is actually used in a lot of different educational curriculums. I can't tell you how many different schools' Blackboard pages link to that blog. It's uncomfortable how many schools are pointing to it. I'm what would happen if I just changed it out for something terrible one day? There are curriculums dependent on me, and I feel I should not have that level of responsibility.
One of my first classes at community college was after I'd already done the NCL, and they talked about cryptography, and I just blew through that section because the NCL, I mean, it's trial by fire. You learn this stuff on the fly, and you learn a lot really quickly. So by the time I took the class on it, it was just kind of a review for me.
Actually, a lot of people tell me that they're like, oh, I read your blog for the NCL games, and then I took a course, and I was like, yeah, this is easy. We've been doing this a while now. So definitely, if you have the opportunity to take a cryptography course at your school and you need an easy A, follow us. There's another really, I was going to say, there's a really good question from Bob Burke. I'm a new coach. Can I do the challenges too as a learning exercise? So coaches can compete in the National Cyber League games. You should be registered as a coach account. You should have students registered under you. If you do not have students registered under you, your account will be purged before the games begin, and you will not maintain your access. But coaches can compete. You will appear on the leaderboard, but just like the player ambassadors, your scores will be pooled for the final rankings. Anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's great.
I've only answered these questions a few times.
I want to answer Rob's question, which is a good place to get. He says, good place to get PowerShell examples that would be useful in the competition other than Linux okay than Linux examples. Okay, so honestly, sans.org, they have like these big hacker sheets that have like tons of, no, you're shaking your head. You don't like sans? Okay. They have
That's
like
another subject for another day.
They have a lot of cheat sheets that you can download, and they've got bash scripts that do things, that are, kind of related to what we do. Let's see, the red team field manual, blue team field manual. Those are great books for, coding examples, scripting examples that are in those books.
Also, the Web Application Hackers Handbook, I think that's what it's called, was recommended by somebody who works at my company that, like, when I was writing the password cracking blog, I couldn't figure out why I needed to use like -- force. And I was like, wait, hey, is this going to break anything? Am I about to give people bad advice? Can you please check my ish? And when I first joined the company, I asked him if he would take a look at some of the challenges with me and see what he thought the best resource would be. And he highly recommends the Web Application Hackers Handbook, I think is what it's called. I feel so bad.
Yeah, Web Application Hackers Handbook. It's a great resource. I'll see if I can get a link for it here real quick. But let's see the rest of that question. As far as like, I also want to mention GitHub. There's tons of scripting examples all over GitHub. If you are trying to automate it, someone else has probably already done it, and you could just look at their code and, hey, copy from the best, right? Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find that web application, because I know which one it is.
Oh, good, because I don't know which one it is because I haven't read it. I was pointed to the resource, and between everything that I do for the National Cyber League and everything I do for my 9 to 5, have not had a chance to read it. Own it. It's in a closet somewhere. So if you can find the link, it's definitely like from my best resources. It's the best recommendation they have, so I can't recommend it highly enough. I really trust these people.
Okay, so I am not getting a profit or anything from this, but I am going to drop an Amazon link in here for you to the book. I'm not saying buy from me. I'm not saying any of that other stuff, but I am going to drop an Amazon link in here.
Cool. So, thank you. Oh yeah, that's the right one. I recognize the cover.
Yeah. You get to a point where you kind of have seen the covers a lot of times, and I think I got my copy of Web Application Handbook, Hacker's Handbook. I got it in a Humble Bundle, actually. It was included in one of those Humble Bundles that comes around every 6 months or so that has a lot of... I
swear they come out like every month.
Yeah, I know they've pushed the same books at me a couple times, and I'm like, I don't need this one. I already got it, But yeah, just if you don't know Humble Bundle, hey, it's a great time to jump in because, you get a bunch of books, Packet, P-A-K-T. They have a lot of books that you can get online or get, ebook copies of for fairly cheap. And then I like anything pretty much through No Starch Press. They are great resources. Sometimes it's really hard
like
to
Tony the Tiger.
It's hard to get sometimes published in our field because our audience just isn't big enough to sell 1 million copies of a book. And No Starch Press does a great job at giving an audience to, these type of publications that are less distributed. And then for web hacking, another one I mentioned is the OWASP guide to web application testing. Fantastic resource. And after reading the top 10 and reading that book and, looking at some of the other OWASP resources, I actually joined an OWASP chapter out here in, where I live. And I think that's a very great organization, community run. And when they publish stuff, they also have like cheat sheets and script examples in those books. For example, like a SQL, when you're trying to do like a SQL injection, they have a page of pre-programmed SQL injections that you can just copy and paste. So check out those OWASP testing guide. That's a really great one also. Any good sites to grab quick resources? I think we answered that.
I'm not clicking the things. All right.
Okay.
David asked, so on our end, we have to like click buttons to answer your questions. So David asked, any good sites to grab quick resources? Yes. The quick answer is CryptoKate.com. That's where we all publish our stuff. There should be a check out Kate's blog link at the bottom. We've been posting Pro Tip Tuesdays every Tuesday. There's lots of content since like I started my blog. There under workshops, there should be the CryptoKate's coaching guide. This was the first approved resource for National Cyber League content. At that point, they weren't allowing you to publish challenges or anything anywhere. I've sort of made that a thing. So it's easily the best resource for the National Cyber League games because for a long time, I was the only person approved to publish anything without them asking you to take it down or, pulling that it's, their intellectual property. I've negotiated on how to discuss topics in a way that doesn't compromise the integrity of the National Cyber League games. I've passed that on to all my player ambassadors, and now we have a team of people who can now write content, and we share it all in one place.
And also on those blogs, we do link to external resources all the time. So if you're looking at a specific category, just go to CryptoKate's site, choose that category, and then go into the blog posts. And, there's external links in there to all kinds of stuff. So just got to explore around and see what you can find.
I just want to share some of the feedback we're getting on the side here. Michael says your guide on how to build a VM was amazing, and that was written by John.
Oh, thank you.
And then Warmind said, my first time doing the NCL and Kate's blog is coming in handy for the gym. So I'm glad to hear that it's working for you guys. We have been breaking our backs, putting out content for you this season. Hopefully we plan to keep up this content schedule. So we'll be posting Pro Tip Tuesdays every season that cover most of the topics. You'll get different authors every season, so you'll get different perspectives, and you'll be able to look by topic soon. It's still an in-progress part of my blog. But if you're going to ask for good, quick resources, honestly, I don't mean to brag, but my blog is the place to go for National Cyber League content.
So I did want to highlight actually a comment that I see over here from David Raynard. And he says that, I'm pretty much jumping in the deep end because I'm not even on the cybersecurity side, but I want the exposure. And I want to highlight that because that's everybody's story. I was not in cybersecurity. I got out of the military as an IT, where I did a lot of sysadmin stuff. I had a little bit of exposure in the information assurance, part of this, doing network security and some security analyst kind of stuff. But really, the level at which you accelerate through from zero to actually legitimately being able to talk cybersecurity, being able to do that in the 40 hours of the competition is amazing. The amount of exposure that you're going to get doing this. Spend time in the gym. Definitely, when we get this thing up, you're going to see that we have a chat that's running, which is through Slack. So go ahead and download Slack and get that ready now, because when Slack comes out, then you'll be able to jump in there.
Slack's out.
Is the channel open?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So you can actually download Slack right now and jump in and kind of meet some people and join the community. You're getting exposure, and after this, you're not going to say I'm not in cybersecurity. You're going to say I'm in cybersecurity. I'm just just starting in it. But your confidence that you get out of this, you're going to be able to say legitimately that, hey, I know some stuff about cybersecurity, and not feel like you have to back that up. It's really this immersive experience. There's nothing like it. Let's see. So that goes out to a lot of the first timers I'm seeing here.
So
Let's see,
we'll follow up with Charles's question. I kind of signed up for NCL on a whim and am unfamiliar with it as a whole. Can you guys tell me why you guys participate in this? And I think this is such an important question. So John, I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, I actually kind of told a little bit of my origin story here. I joined the Navy. I was in IT. I got exposed to information assurance really early on in my career, and I loved it. Being able to, kind of just do some analysis work, look at, some packets, look at some, sys logs, that kind of stuff. Try to detect any kind of irregular activity. You got to have kind of a mind for that stuff, and it's basic analyst stuff. But I got to the point where I was automating things and writing scripts to make my job a little bit easier. And I was really kind of going with it, and then I had to change to a different command. I moved to a different command, and they moved me out of cybersecurity completely. And I went to another command after that, and I'm like, hey, I really like this cyber thing. Could not get back into it. So I ended up making the choice to get out because I knew that's where my heart was. I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I got out, took my GI Bill, went to a local community college, started picking up some classes, and that's where I found the National Cyber League. And once I found the National Cyber League and I actually got that hands-on experience, the classes became very, very easy. Like I said before, and I was not as challenged doing the classwork as I was doing the games. So I looked at extending my degree out. I already had a bachelor's degree, and I decided I liked this enough that I was going to go ahead and pursue my master's degree. And the side benefits to that was it gave me a couple more semesters of doing National Cyber League. And every time I did it, I got a little bit higher placed. I learned a little bit more. I knew how to attack the problems a little bit faster, a little bit easier. Knew what I was looking for. Spoke the language, so to speak. And then I had a goal that I wanted to make top 10 in teams and top 50 in the individual rankings. And once I did that, then I thought I was going to walk away. And just about then, Crypto Kate, came to me and said, "Hey, how would you
You're
like
going
to
do this thing?" All of my player ambassadors thus far have been voluntold because they were the best people I could think of to help me accomplish my goals of making the competition more accessible to all players and encouraging players. Why do I currently compete? Because I want to experience the games and look through the challenges and be able to know what the players are talking about. Why did I first compete? Because I was told. I didn't have a choice. A professor pretty much said, do this thing. And I did it. And I did really, really, really bad. And he said, did you learn something? And I said, not really. But I did learn what a CVE code was. And he was like, all right, that's something. You're going to do it again. And I was like, no. And so I did it again. And then in doing it again, I found out that I actually was really, really good at cryptography. I had learned cryptography from playing Nancy Drew video games and the Nancy Drew books. And I was like, oh, how do I do this for the rest of my life? And I just kept playing the games to try to figure out more. And I really didn't feel like I belonged, had a really strong case of imposter syndrome. But what I would do is I would say, hey, I'll teach you cryptography if you teach me log analysis. I'll teach you cryptography if you'll teach me Wireshark. And I just kind of went to all the different players that I could and traded skills. And eventually I was second place in my school. And then pretty much after that, I was unbeatable. In my school, I was ranking in the top 100. I was doing really, really well for myself. And, I constantly say that NCL showed me the skills that I needed to succeed in the industry. And then I used the National Cyber League to find my voice through the Women in Cybersecurity Conference, the shirt I happen to be wearing. Not that I was planning to promote that right now. But I found my voice in my community there. And ultimately, I don't believe that I can ever pay back the help that I've been given and the people who have mentored me along the way, but I can pay it forward. And that's what I'm here to do, is to pay it forward to the next generation of NCL players and make sure that they have the best experience that they can. I want to make sure that every player feels like they have the opportunity to succeed, and they know that they have at least 4 of us, the NCL Player Ambassadors, in their corner, cheering them on, rooting for their success. I constantly tell the Player Ambassadors, it's not about us learning to be the best. It's about us encouraging everyone else to be their best. With that, I will say that we are accepting and reviewing applications. We're actually going to start reaching out to people in the next week or two for additional player ambassadors. John, Gina, and Fee will be selecting teams of players who will work with them in smaller groups so that we can have, an amazing team. We have over 5,000 players every season, and, it's hard for one person to do it. It's hard for the 4 of us to do it, and we need more people. We need more players. The only downside is that you aren't eligible to receive a scouting report. You do get pulled from the ranks at the end of the season. So if you're a current player, this might not be for you yet. But if you are interested in the future, you can always apply later. The way to apply is to go to cryptocate.com, and there should be an NCL Player Ambassadors tab. Click on that. There's a Google form. Fill it out, and then John, Gina, and Fee are what is that? Reviewing applications this week. So we are going to be contacting some of you. You should get an email from I don't know, probably our personal emails. We'll figure that out. Just watch out for us.
I was trying to point to the Checkout Kate's blog button. I think it's here, but I don't know if they swapped our screen, so it could be here.
John, there's a great question I think you're going to love. Michael asked, did you end up adopting that shark nickname from last week's video?
I happen to be wearing my shark shirt. And yes, I have adopted this John Mako McGill thing. I love the name. I love sharks. It fits really well. I've actually talked to a couple people, and they're like, when I go to introduce myself, I'm like, yeah, I'm John McGill. Gill's like a shark. And it just kind of, I've really kind of, enjoyed, marinating in that, and making that part of my persona now. It's great. And actually, I want to, we still have a couple player ambassadors that don't have a hacker name, so we gotta.
Well, you've got CryptoKate, you've got Mako McGill, you've got WebWitch, and then Gina is just NCL Gina right now.
Just Gina. She needs a hacker name. I think we need to have a contest.
I was just going to say, so you know what? If we get Gina a really cool hacker name that she's super in love with, the person who submits that name, whoever Gina tells me submitted that name, I will purchase their game code for the next season. Not for fall, but for spring. If you get Gina a really cool hacker name that she loves and she's really excited about, I will purchase your game code for the next season.
That's fantastic. I was just going to do some stickers, but that's even better. So
I think it's important for us to embrace our alter egos. I think I really found my voice under CryptoKate, and that eventually led me to find my voice under, Caitlin Bestenheider, which I don't use so much in NCL, but I do speak at a lot of conferences. I do go to a lot of events. I do, make a difference in the community where I can. And that sort of came from adopting CryptoKate first. So I think having your hacker handle sort of gives you, your little bit of a confidence boost that you need. So, all right.
So it sounds like we have a competition now. So how should they submit those names?
Well, Gina is currently on Twitter as NCL Gina, I think. I don't think there's any underscores, but I could be wrong. Everybody's names.
So we're going to have her just have everyone DM NCL Gina?
Well, I don't know if she wants that many DMs. We didn't exactly ask her about this. So what I would recommend is if you tweet at National Cyber League, tweet at NCL Gina, tweet at me, tweet at all of us at once, but you have to, of course, tag Gina. But tag us all and then say, Gina, I've got your new hacker name, and then, give her the hacker name, and I'm sure she'll be influenced by everybody's likes. So if you want to go through the submitted hacker names and like all the ones that you think fit her really well, I'm sure that will help in her decision-making process. But yeah, I really think that, we talked about it for a long time. We tried to come up with several things. We didn't really ever find anything that hit the nail on the head for her. And you guys did such a good job with John's nickname that I definitely think crowdsourcing this is the way to go. So, stop it, Warmind. That's really cute. I'm going to just freak out over how wonderful these all are. But like I said, tweet at her, tag the National Cyber League. If you can't find her and you tag me, I'll get it to her. I'll retweet it to her. But let's make sure that at least National Cyber League and Gina or I are tagged. If you don't already follow Gina, I will tweet out tonight all of the player ambassador and our one and only Pupper ambassador's Twitter, so you can find it there. And yeah, tweet us your recommendations for Gina's hacker handle. And like I said, Gina will select the winner. It's not based on votes, though I'm sure votes will influence the decision. And whatever she picks, whoever submits that name to her, however she picks it, if multiple people submit the same name, whoever she tells me submitted it to her first, that is who I will purchase their game code for next season.
Okay. We have a couple more questions I want to go ahead and close out because we're getting near that hour mark. And the first one is from Michael Hallman. It is, what's the most efficient and noob-friendly cracking tool on Kali? I'm actually just going to refer you right back to the blog that we wrote last week. There's a lot of information in there. Definitely using RockU, using John, using Cain and Abel, using crypto. Was it Hashcat? Use Hashcat, Crunch. There's so many tools for it, but I think we covered mostly Cain and Abel, but I'm a big fan of John. The problem is that you got to know a lot of command line parameters for John, which again is why we're doing this thing here with the scripting. If you can write all those command line parameters into a single script and then just feed it, a bunch of hashes, it's less for you to remember, and it makes you lazy, but it makes you,
efficient. It's definitely a thing. Yeah, so definitely if you just go through these videos, anything we've recommended in any other Crowdcast videos, anything we've recommended anywhere on my blog, we write our blogs with the intention of beginner users. So anything that we've published is intended for beginners. And then the last question is there a list or PDF of what we should know in regards to PowerShell and Linux command line, Bash, etc. for both NCL and beyond? There's 1,000,001 out there. Have we compiled our own? No. Google it. There's literally you can't throw a stone in Google and not smack a couple of lists. So anything out there is pretty good. There isn't a perfect master list.
GitHub seems to be a really great place to go for codes and scripts and stuff like that. And you can just search for whatever you're trying to script, and if it doesn't fit perfectly, you can at least get a really good template to start from. So.
There's one more question, and then we're gonna wrap it up for tonight. Just because we have both been horribly sick this week, and the fact that we're on the show is slightly a miracle. David asked, it says for Cyber Skyline link, we need to invite an admin or an invite from an admin for the Slack workspace. Where do we get those? So essentially, my understanding of how it works is that you register for the games, and then you try to join the Slack, and then magic happens.
Yeah, I think it's Friends and Toby. Friends and Toby both have an account over there, and I think they're the administrators, so they'll just approve you after you put in the request. I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
You have to make sure that you're using the same email address that you use to register for the games. You can't use a separate email address, I think. I don't know. I don't do that part. I wish I had a better answer, but I don't. Michael says, don't say script. You will summon the Kate rolling eyes. Isn't that obvious? Is true. I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
Look, I was the worst player ambassador to host you this week. I think scripting is great for different things. I don't think you need it too much in the NCL games. The very little that you do need it, I usually don't do those challenges.
Okay, so as we wrap this show up, as we wrap the show up, if you have any other questions about scripting, I know we didn't dive super deep here. You can leave comments
post them on the blog. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll kind of take a look at that.
I
watch
do
it like a
apparently
hawk.
have to
But
approve.
if there is something I could.
I also apparently have to approve comments, and I just found this out. And Gina has taken on this responsibility because I don't know how to do it. So if you've commented previously, we just found those.
Put your comments into the ether, and eventually they'll come.
I mean, we'll check them now that we know they exist.
So,
I didn't know I had to approve them.
And I just did want to thank everyone for joining and being with us. I don't see some of our regulars tonight, so I'm not sure if it's just getting too close.
Where's
to games.
Dr. Roberto?
Maybe everyone's getting a little bit nervous about the games coming up, and doing their research and going out there.
The gym is also open. If you don't know,
maybe they're in the gym. Yeah.
There is no NCL on Slack. We all have our individual accounts. So I'm Crypto Kate. I think you're Blue Level 2, just like your Twitter. I think everybody's pretty close.
That
to
will be
Twitter
changing.
handle.
I'll be changing that to John Mako. We'll be doing Mako in that somehow. NCL Mako. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. So, but if you post in the Ask Kate channel, we do check that as regularly as possible. Please note, all the player ambassadors do have full-time jobs, and we do our absolute best, but we cannot monitor this stuff 24/7. Franz and Toby are in the Slack as much as humanly possible. They're the game makers. They will see everything and comment as quickly as possible. I think during the actual games, they somehow have one of them online at all times. I don't know if that's true. That might not be true. But, I've never asked
online.
A question.
They're carrying a cell phone, but yeah.
I mean, it counts. So that Slack is definitely a great place to reach us. And then, as always, you can always... We love when you tweet at us. I know, everybody loves that. But, when you tweeted us, the National Cyber League board, committee, whatever, whoever the people are that make the decisions that I talk to every week in that meeting that I show up for, when they can see your guys' comments and feedback, it definitely makes a big difference for what we're able to do as player ambassadors, for what we get the budget for originally there was concern about us coming over to Crowdcast because we had such a good Facebook Live following, and you guys have already blown us away by coming over to Crowdcast with us. And don't worry, I screen capped whoever commented above that they were so happy we switched from Facebook because they had deleted their Facebook. Somebody posted that they've already scored 2,065 points in the gym. Go in the gym. Have a lot of fun. We can talk about the gym challenges, but we will never give answers. We only talk about methods. So what's great about the gym is what's great about the gym is you can talk about it while it's still open. Every other game, so individual, team, preseason, all of that, you cannot talk about the challenges while they are open. The gym is the only opportunity to talk about challenges while they are still open. So that's awesome. And the gym is open until December 14th.
So what can they expect next week, Kate?
That's a good question. Hold on.
I didn't mean to torpedo you there.
Look. I'm still not feeling well. So, next week is top 10 do's and don'ts for the National Cyber League game. Hot take. I'm trying to get Franz Payer, the NCL game maker. Well, he's from Cyber Skyline, but he makes the NCL games, to be on the show with us, which is awesome.
That'd be great.
I think registration closes tonight. I could have made that up.
I think that's right. Yeah, it's tonight, I think.
If you don't register by tonight, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, you will have to pay an additional $10 for the season, so the price goes up to $45. And once that late registration closes, honestly, I can't even pull enough favors to get a game code that late in the game. So if you have not registered, make sure you register right now. Click off this video and register. It's that important. Somebody asked how many people participate on a yearly basis. We have about 5,000 plus per season. That's each semester. And with that, we're going to sign off. Happy hacking, you guys, and we'll see you in the gym and very soon in the preseason games.